Hello and welcome to week 21 of year 3 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 1. We're reading Genesis chapter 24. Last time we saw God test Abraham, commanding him to sacrifice Isaac, his beloved son. When Abraham obeyed and was about to strike the death blow, God intervened and provided a ram instead for the sacrifice. In this way, by obeying God, Abraham confessed that Isaac and all the descendants he hoped for from him, who had been the gift of God to him and to his wife Sarah, still belonged to God, and he entrusted himself and all his hopes to the Lord. In the remainder of chapter 22, which we started last week with that, and we aren't going to read the rest of it today, but we see Abraham learn that his brother Nahor had children and grandchildren who will become significant in the coming chapter. In chapter 23, which we are also skipping, Sarah dies, having lived for 127 years, until Isaac was 37 years old, in short. Abraham purchases a cave near Hebron, near Mamre, in which to bury her. It is in this place, in this cave, that he himself and all his near descendants and their wives will eventually be buried, and the place remains a place of pilgrimage and veneration to this day. At any rate, 3 years after Sarah's death, Abraham decides that it is time for his son Isaac to marry, and we pick up the story there. So, chapter 24 of Genesis. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his house, who had charge of all that he had, "Put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live, but will go to my country and my kindred, and get a wife for my son Isaac." The servant said to him, "Perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came?" Abraham said to him, "See to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and swore to me, 'To your offspring I will give this land,' he will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there." So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels, and departed, taking all kinds of choice gifts from his master. And he set out and went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nahor. He made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water. It was toward evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. I am standing here by the spring of water, and the daughters of the townspeople are coming out to draw water. Let the girl to whom I shall say, 'Please offer your jar that I may drink,' and who shall say, 'Drink, and I will water your camels,' let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master." Before he had finished speaking, there was Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, coming out with her water jar on her shoulder. The girl was very fair to look upon, a virgin whom no man had known. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, "Please let me sip a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she said, and quickly lowered her jar upon her hand, and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw for your camels also, until they have finished drinking." So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, and ran again to the well to draw, and she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence, to learn whether or not the Lord had made his journey successful. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold nose ring weighing a half shekel, and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels, and said, "Tell me whose daughter you are." Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? She said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. She added, We have plenty of straw and fodder and a place to spend the night. The man bowed his head and worshipped the Lord and said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me on the way to the house of my master's kin. Then the girl ran and told her mother's household about these things. Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran out to the man, to the spring, as soon as he had seen the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and when he heard the words of his sister Rebekah, Thus the man spoke to me, he went to the man, and there he was, standing by the camels at the spring. He said, Come in, O blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside when I have prepared the house and a place for the camels? So the man came into the house, and Laban unloaded the camels and gave him straw and fodder for the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Now, this is a long chapter, so we're only going to read the first half, which means that the big takeaways, the big conclusions are going to have to wait till next time. But this time we can point out a couple things. First of all, Isaac is not young when Abraham sends for a wife for his son. And it's not clear what conclusions we should draw from this. One possibility may be that we're being given a glimpse of Isaac's chastity. He's not running off after young women in his young years. He is remaining with his father and mother, doing the work of faith, caring for the animals, and waiting on the Lord, and that this is the time that this is supposed to happen. That's really speculating a little bit. It's more notable, more striking that Abraham insists that his son is not to marry a woman from among the Canaanites. That might also be the conclusion we could draw, that Abraham has been looking for any righteous people, anyone who would be faithful, anyone who would not be dedicated to idolatry, and he's not finding anyone. So it may not just be, these Canaanites, they're all, idol worshippers, and I'm not even going to try looking. It may be that he has been looking, trying to find someone appropriate, and now he's saying to his servant, nope, none of them. Make sure my son doesn't marry anyone from here. I want you to go back and find a wife from my people, because I think there you'll find someone who is faithful. It's interesting that he insists that Isaac cannot go back there. Abraham and Isaac, we then see, are both dedicated to this life to which God has called them out in the wilderness. They're not going to go back and live in civilization. Isaac is wholly on board then, we can understand. Because Isaac is 37, he could go if he wanted to. But that he doesn't, that he's submitting to his father. This is important too. It's not given to us explicitly, but from what we saw in the last chapter with Isaac not struggling, so far as we could see, against being the sacrifice, even here we see too, Isaac is a willing and active participant in this covenant with God to which Abraham and now Isaac have been called. Finally, we should emphasize the importance of hospitality. And we can compare this to Lot and to the men of Sodom, who did not know how to greet people with hospitality. But Rebekah here, the young woman of the house, when she's asked to give water to the man, she offers the water to the camels as well. He doesn't ask her for that, she offers it. He asks God for this sign because it is an above and beyond thing to do. It is a sign of piety, a sign ultimately of righteousness, of obedience to God. and that Rebecca offers this is extraordinary. And while on the one hand, a lot of the details in this passage, they're very foreign to us. We don't know what it is to come out of the desert with a caravan of camels and to, come up to the well and ask for water. We don't know what we would expect. We don't know what's culturally normative. We don't know what any of this means. But that the servant asks for this as the sign for what he's been asked to do by Abraham, that he prays to God and he asks for guidance in this way. We can understand this is an extraordinary degree of hospitality, and Rebecca shows herself to be unusual and unusually pious. The other thing we should point out here, although this is more foreshadowing for not just next time, but next year, when we read about the story of Jacob, in which Rebecca's brother Laban features more prominently. Laban doesn't come out very well in this story, because we're told why Laban rushes out to see Abraham's servant. And it's not because his sister comes and says, a man came from our relative Abraham, and I think we should go and greet the family. She tells all of these things, but what Laban is struck by is the gold. His sister went out without anything on her, and she comes back with expensive jewelry everywhere. And he's like, "Oh, there's money out there. We got to be hospitable. We got to, make sure that we're in a good relationship with this wealth." Laban's personality is not great. At least that's how it looks here. So that's all for this time. We can emphasize the importance of faithfulness to God, remaining out in the wilderness, as Abraham and Isaac are determined to do. And we can note the importance of hospitality and of going above and beyond what is asked when it comes to hospitality, as we see evidenced with Rebecca. She perceives the need for the camels to drink, and she cares for all the man's needs as he comes tired out of the desert. So, with that, we'll wrap up. We'll see you next week as we conclude the story. God bless you all.